So the instance on points node places geometry on points, but it does not take into account the angle of the geometry your instances are sitting on. In this quick example, I will show you how to extract the normal from the original geometry using the capture attribute node and use it to rotate the instance so that it sits on the surface and is angled correctly. Note, this will work back as far as Blender 3, but many of the menu layouts got rearranged in Blender version 3.5. Here we have our default cube with some of the cones instanced on its vertex. The cones retain their original orientation, but I would like them to sit on the faces and be angled correctly. Let's get started. So we're going to start by adding the normal, which is under geometry, normal. Now, as our cones are on our points at the moment, we can actually use the normal from this, because that will actually refer to these points. However, we're going to break it in a moment, which is why we need the capture attribute node. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a line Euler to vector, because the normal here is a vector and we need a rotation. And our cones are sitting flat on the z-axis, so that's going to be a z. So that needs to go into the vector. I'll plug that into rotation. If it's not working, you may have accidentally plugged it into rotation here. That will stop it from working. So now, as you can see, our cones are sitting on the points and they're actually facing out correctly. However, we don't want that. What we want is it to sit on the faces. So I'm going to add operations mesh to points. Now here's where we're going to break it. So let's move that up a bit. If we change that to faces, as you can see, it's not working. That's because this is coming out as points, not as a mesh or geometry, and that means that it's just going to face directly up. So we need to capture that before we turn it into points. So here's where we use the capture attribute, and we place that in between the geometry and when we turn it into points. Now what we want to do is we want to get the vector out of it, because we're putting the normal into it. We want to select face. So I'm going to disconnect normal from here. I'm going to move that up here and put that into value. And then I'm going to take that attribute, so that's capturing it before we do our nasty stuff to it there. Now, when we put it in, we have the cones sitting flat on the faces as we want. And that is as simple as it is. Right. Thanks for listening. I hope this was helpful.